everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Shaq and today we'll be tier ranking all of the books I read in 2020.
Hey, listen!
Today I'm going to be wrapping up my entire 2020 reading year, which won't take long considering I only read 40 books this year. We're going to be going through those and tier ranking those. We are also going to dive into my Goodreads year in review. Actually, I think we're going to do that first. And we'll look at my stats, how much I read, what my best ratings were, etc, etc. Without further ado, let's just get onto it now. I don't know why I'm making this any longer than it needs to be. So this is my Goodreads year in review. We have read 11,336 pages, over 40 books. Now this says 39, but I promise you, we're about to rank 40 books, not 39, so we will just ignore that for now. It is 40 books. So my shortest book was Saga, which is volume 8 I believe, which was 146 pages. My longest one was the Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy by Cassandra Clare, Sarah Reese Brennan, Maureen Johnson and Robin Wasserman, which was 651 pages. My average book length in 2020 was 290 pages, which is really bad. That is really short, meaning that I probably only read like graphic novels and poetry collections this year, which isn't far from the truth. My most popular book was Looking for Alaska by John Green, which 1,845,038 people also shelved this year. My least popular was Shades of Lovers by Katherine Hancock, which only 1,222 people also shelved this year, which is a shame because I think it was one of my favorites of this year. My average rating for 2020 was 4.1 out of 5, so this is up from last year I believe. I think last year I averagely rated things a 3.7. I think this is reflective of the fact that I wasn't just picking up books that I didn't think I was going to enjoy because I was in a massive slump. I was trying to like read books that I knew I was going to like so that I would actually finish them. I wasn't DNFing books, I wasn't finishing books that I didn't like, and I wasn't using Goodreads as often, and I was only using Goodreads when I actually liked a book and wanted to talk about it. So that's probably why that's so high. My highest rated on Goodreads is none other than Hearthstone volume 3 by Alice Oseman. This was rated a 4.65 average. I gave it a 5 stars because I'm a hoe for Alice Oseman. Alice Oseman. Okay, let's stop. My first review of the year was of To Drink Coffee with a Ghost by Amanda Lovelace, which is a poetry collection, which is lovely. And then we are moving on to my 2020 in books. So let's just go ahead and rank these bad boys. As I said, there are 40 of them, so I won't be going chronologically in the date that I read them, but it just messed it all up and I kind of stressed about it for a little bit, but it's fine. So the tier lists I have for this video is best of the best, really fucking good, this was just okay because everyone says that, this was just okay. Thank you next because Ariana is a mood, thank you next to books. And the last one is absolute garbage because me and my boyfriend say garbage instead of garbage because we want to seem fancier than we are. So the last category is absolute garbage. Anyway, the first book on this list isn't the first book I actually read. It is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, which was a reread. Most of these I think were actually rereads, which is kind of disappointing, but oh well, can't do anything about that now. So I think The Poet X belongs in maybe it belongs in really fucking good because this is basically like a contemporary novel about a girl called Ziamara who she's learning how to love herself, to take up space, and she's got a really conservative religious mother who just kind of inhibits her doing what she wants essentially. And it's told in verse. It is a lovely story that I really enjoy every time I read it, but it's not the best of the best for me anyway. It is really good though and just misses out on the top 5 category just because I have some issues with it. I have some, not everything's perfect, you know, but I really did like it and enjoyed it, and I'm really glad that I reread it this year. Next we have the 3 Hearthstone volumes, which is really inconvenient that Tier Maker has put them all next to each other, which is really nice. We've got the 3 volumes of Hearthstone by Alice Oseman. We've got volume 1, volume 2, volume 3. Volume 4 is coming out this year, which is very exciting. So I think I'm going to probably put maybe them in the same category as The Poet X. I kind of wanted, actually, maybe this was just okay. No, okay, I'm not going to change my mind. Really fucking good is where they all belong because I really do like them, but again, nothing is perfect. They aren't like top tier for me. They kind of just do sit somewhere in the middle, and I am grateful that I did read them, but like, they're okay. Do you know, not okay because there's a category for that, but they are better than okay, if that makes sense. Next we have Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, which is going to be one of 2 Shadowhunter books that I read this year, which is disappointing to say the least. I will probably put this, I want to put it in really fucking good. I kind of want to put it also in this was just okay, just because I was surprised that I did like it as much as I did, but I did again have some criticisms, and also I kind of was only feeling it towards the end. I don't know how I feel about this. Am I telling the utmost truth? Do I think that this belongs in this category? We'll see, I think. I do think it does just belong, and this was just okay, but we might change our minds. I don't know. It was a good read, but like, maybe not the best, if that makes sense. Next is No Big Deal by Anne. Who's Anne? Next is No Big Deal by Bethany Rutter. And for this one, we're gonna go, thank you, next. Thank you, next. Thank you, bye. This was awful. This is in my disappointment slash surprises of 2020, and unfortunately it was on the disappointed end. I will leave all of the like end of year content that I've done so far this year in the description if you want to go and view it, but this was in that video and I was so disappointed by it. I genuinely was just heartbroken that I didn't enjoy it, so that is going in thank you, next. Next we got George. Haha, get it? Next. I can't say next, I love it. Next we have George, which I'm going to put in straight up best of the best. I love Alex Gino's writing. I think they do a sublime job of encapsulating the queer experience, and there is also another books by them on this list, so we'll probably get more into that when the other book comes up. But I really enjoy George. I love the writing style. I love how easy they are to consume, and for me they are the best of the best. I have a really good experience with Alex Gino's work and I can't wait to read more from them. Next we have the word of the day is next. Next on the list we have Daisy Jones and the Six, which again is going straight up to the top. Baby girl, this is best of the best. I absolutely love Taylor Jenkins. Who's Taylor Jenkins? I have no idea who that is. Who is she? Taylor Jenkins Reid is one of those auto-buy authors for me now. I absolutely loved, it's not on this list, I didn't read it this year, which is very, very sad. I also enjoyed Evelyn Hugo as well, but Daisy Jones and the Six just tops it for me. It's best of the best. Can't wait for the adaptation if it's ever going to come out. I love Daisy Jones and the Six. It is sublime. It is best of the best. Chef's kiss. Next we have one of the Pillow Thoughts books. I actually can't see the title. I think this is Mending the Mind, which is number 2 maybe. Regardless of which one this is, I'm gonna put both of them in really fucking good because poetry from Courtney Cox speaks on a different level. It is so good. I would highly recommend. Next we've got Wilder Girls, and we're gonna put that in absolute garbage. No explanation. It's about a plague, and reading that in 2020 was a big nope. Next we got To Drink Coffee with a Ghost by Amanda Lovelace. I'm gonna put this one in. This was just okay. I thought it was good, but I just found other poetry collections better in 2020, I guess. All Rights Reserved is going in absolute garbage. I think I DNF Wilder Girls, but I actually got, I think, all the way through All Rights Reserved. I think. I don't actually remember. But absolute garbage, no question about it. Infinity Sun is next by Adam Silvera. This is going to go in really fucking good. I've talked about this a few times in my end of year wrap up stuff, so I'm not going to talk about it in that much detail, but I absolutely loved the sibling relationship in this. I love the magic system. I think it's really interesting. I love all the pop culture references, and one of the main characters having like a YouTube channel. I thought it was really well done, and I can't wait to read the second one. Next we have the Shadowhunter Codex, I believe this is called, but I read this year apparently. I have no recollection of that, but we're going to put it in probably just this was okay, because I did enjoy reading about the different Shadowhunters, seeing that like the artwork and stuff. It was beautiful, but you know, there's nothing more than that. You know, I've already read the story. Do you know what I mean? It was alright. Next, Dodie, Secret for the Mad. I was going to put this, and this was just okay. I absolutely love Dodie to pieces. I love all of her music. I do quite a lot of reactions to her music on my main channel, but I just feel like this was just okay. I love Dodie's writing style and would definitely read more from her in the future. I feel like it just kind of panders towards a younger audience and it's just past me. This was a reread, and I feel like the first time I read this, it was better, if that makes sense, because I was younger and less sophisticated in my reading style, I think. Next, another Pillow Thoughts book that is going straight into really fucking good, as I've already said. Looking for Alaska. This is best of the best because it is one of my favourite books of all time. I used to be called Looking for Shaki instead of Stories with Shaq, because of Looking for Alaska. I owe Looking for Alaska so much, and I really would like to reread it very soon, actually. The Hulu adaptation is really good, and I watched that over and over again this year as well, and I absolutely love Looking for Alaska. If you don't know what it's about, then you can just Google it. It's free, you know. So many books to get through and not a lot of time, so let's just carry on. Next, Chain of Gold. Again, we are going to put this one in best of the best because I love Cassandra Clare. Again, one of the other books I read for the Shadowhunterverse in this last year. Not enough, in my opinion. I really, really do enjoy Cassandra Clare's world and her writing, and that's why it's in best of the best. Next, Shades of Lovers. Another one for best of the best. Apparently, Tira Maker just wants me to put everything in best of the best. I loved this poetry collection. It is by Catherine Hancock, and it was my second most favourite book of the year, and I loved it. I said in my top 10 reads of 2020 video that I read this in April, but apparently I read it in July. I'm not actually sure if I like reread it and then put the other date in, but I definitely read this like early into quarantine, not that late, because by then it would have been over. I actually can't remember when I first read this, but I was blown away. It came at a time where I needed it, and it just helped me in so many ways that I can't even describe. Next is Let Me Hear a Rhyme by Tiffany D. Jackson. I'm going to pop this straight in really fucking good. I actually just read, towards my 2021 reading goal, I have started reading for this year now, obviously, because I'm tier ranking my reads. But I have just read Growing by Tiffany D. Jackson, and it was so good. It just reminded me how good Let Me Hear a Rhyme was and how much I enjoyed it, so that's getting really fucking good as well. Ode to hip-hop music, and it's about a artist who is murdered called Steph, and it leads his sister and his two best friends to kind of mourn him and also try and make his music career happen from the grave. It's really, really good, and I would highly recommend that one as well. That's why it's really fucking good. Next, we've got Rick by Alex Gina, like I've already mentioned. I'm gonna put this in really fucking good as well, just because I don't think it was as good as George, but I still really enjoyed it. I talked about this in my top 10 books of 2020, so if you want to go see more of those thoughts, that is in that video. But it's just basically a really cute, fluffy middle grade, like George's, about like middle school, I guess, but for us in the UK it would be primary school or infant school, and the main character is friends with a bully, and that dynamic in a book is really interesting, especially from someone who has been bullied. I thought it was really well done. It made me kind of question my own experiences of bullying, and like the fact that they could have been going through something that I didn't really know about, and someone who hasn't bullied, that's really hard to come to terms with. So yeah, really well done from Alex Gino again. Next, we've got To Make Monsters Out of Girls by Amanda Lovelace. This is probably just going to go in This Was Just Okay, because I just kind of felt a little bit let down by this installment. The other one is also in the same category as well. I loved the Women of Some Kind of Magic series by Amanda Lovelace, and I love some of her other work as well, her other poetry that has been featured in other collections and stuff, but this one was just okay. Next, we got Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and this was because the Reading Rush did their prompt again for a book to movie adaptation or something along those lines, and I'm just gonna pop this in maybe Thank You Next, because I had a lot of problems with it. This is basically about a teenage boy. I think he's like in his older teenage years, so maybe 18, like 17, 18, 19, and he is literally like cheating on his girlfriend, who is a high schooler. Like, he's like graduated and he's like a young adult essentially, and she's still like really young, and it just gave me the ick, right? It just gave me the freaking ick. And he's like looking at this other girl called Ramona, and he basically has to fight all of her ex-partners, and there is bi rep there, which I loved, but he has to just basically fight all of her exes to like be with her, even though there's this other girl that he's trying to see, and she's like an infant, and it's weird, okay? So Thank You Next, Scott Pilgrim. Thank you next. Edgar Wright is superior. Lovelace is next, and for this one I'm probably gonna go with This Was Just Okay. This is about a girl called Georgia who goes to university, and she is believing that something is wrong with her in terms of like her experiences with sex and relationships, be it the fact that she has no experience. So when she goes to university, her and her friends all go to the same university, which is very unlikely, just say, and they kind of like try and help her find love, because realistically Georgia would love the idea of it, but she doesn't really know how or what that means. But then she kind of realizes that she's ace, and I felt like that kind of realization and her coming out excused a lot of her shitty behavior. And also the fact that Alice Oseman points out that there are not a lot of like queer people of color in spaces, even like queer spaces where they should be able to run free and like express themselves, but the only two characters of color who are also queer in this book kind of like act as like little like magical fairies who fix all of the white characters' problems and like go around fixing her mistakes and stuff. And I don't think that Georgia properly apologized and was like held accountable for her actions that led to a lot of people being upset. But yeah, I thought it was just okay, and I'm not ace, so I can't really speak to the experience and the representation of being ace, but his own voices, and I'm proud of Alice Oseman for coming out and speaking about asexuality and her own experiences. And again, a ho for Alice Oseman, whatever. Next is The Black Flamingo by Dean Atter. I wish there was a category between really fucking good and This Was Just Okay. I think I'm gonna put it in really fucking good, but the lower end of really fucking good. This is basically about a drag queen origin story. It is really good, but I do feel like some of the definitions of drag and what it means to be a drag queen were very like binary and didn't really include like, you know, women doing drag, and it was just very much like men doing women stuff. Do you know what I mean? I think like it was just very sort of like closed-minded in what drag is, and drag can be anything, anyone can do drag, and I just felt like that kind of inhibited the book. But it was still really good, a really good way to raise, you know, awareness of some of the struggles that drag queens face and like raising your voice. It was really empowering, but that's the only gripe I had with it, so it's doing really fucking good. Next, oh yes, thank you so much Tearmaker for putting all of these books next to each other. We've got the Wayward Children series, which I binge read all of them in this year, and it actually helped me get out of a reading slump. The first book is probably going to go in really fucking good. The next book probably is This Was Just Okay, and Beneath Sugar Sky is probably Thank You Next. In Absent Dream is probably in the same category, and then Come Tumbling Down is probably in really fucking good with the first book as well. But this series is basically about these doors who transport children into like magical worlds that suit them best. They get so used to being in these magical worlds and they suit them so well, is that when they come back to the real world, they're really confused and they have a really hard time adjusting to the real world, which is where Eleanor West's Wayward Children's School comes in, and she kind of like coaches them back to reality and how to deal with real life while simultaneously kind of trying to find their doors and making them go back home, because she knows from experience that that's what makes them happiest. I thought that the series went downhill and then kind of brought back up again, which is why I've put the last and the first book in really fucking good, and I put This Was Just Okay, I put the second book in the series, and then the other two I put in Thank You Next, because they really are Thank You Next. Next we have my favourite book of the year, which is The Invisible Life of Addie Larue. This is going straight up into absolute this is going straight into best of the best, because I absolutely adore this. So this is the most talked about book on the Booktanet, I think, as of late. It is The Invisible Life of Addie Larue by V.E. Schwab, and it basically follows a dual timeline perspective of our character Addie Larue, who in the first timeline is kind of like, you know, 18th to 20th century France, as well as other places as well, but that's where it majority takes place. And it's about Addie, who really doesn't want to be married, doesn't want to be tied down to anyone, she just wants to make art and live her life. So she asks the devil if she can have immortality and if he'll grant this wish with a price. And so the price is that no one remembers who Addie is. Although that she lives a long time, she truly has no ties because no one remembers her face once she leaves their eyesight. In the present day perspectives, we are in like current day New York, and we are following a more sophisticated 300-year-old Addie after she has lived that long, being forgotten and trying to leave her mark on society. She meets Henry, who is a bookshop owner, and she comes in, steals a copy of the Odyssey, and when she goes back a couple days later, he remembers her and he remembers the fact that she stole a book. She is very inspired by this, obviously very intrigued, and she would really like to know why he remembers her and if that has any significance on her relationship with him. Really good book. I really enjoyed it. I sobbed like a baby at the end. I even highlighted loads of stuff within it, and I love this book. I truly do. It is magnificent. Next we have The Afterlife of Holly Chase. I'm gonna put this probably in This Was Just Okay. This is a retelling kind of like loosely based on Scrooge. It's about our main character Holly Chase, who is a bitch. She doesn't really like have any like moral compass. She is just an arsehole. So when she's visited by three spirits on Christmas Eve, she thinks it's a total fluke and made up and it's some like prank. But the next day she does pay the price on Christmas Day, where she does die. But we follow her like a couple years later working a job for a company called Project Scrooge. I just thought this was okay. I know a lot of people do like this book and reread it every single Christmas, but I can't really see myself doing that, and I don't really like retellings or even Christmas books in general, so it probably was kind of my fault for reading this. I thought it was okay. I enjoyed my time reading it, but it's not one of those that will stick in my head, I don't think. Okay, next we have two of the Mortal Instruments graphic novels. They are separated by a different graphic novel, so we'll just ignore that one for now. But we have volumes 1 and 2 maybe, or 3 and 2 of the Mortal Instrument graphic novels, which I got last year for Christmas or my birthday. These are both by Cassandra Clare, and I think they're illustrated by Cassandra Jean. I don't know though. They were both really good. I think I'm just going to pop them in This Was Just Okay though, because I just feel like it's the same story just in a different form, and I feel like if I do want to reread the Mortal Instruments, I feel like for the first maybe 2 or 3 books, I will just reread the graphic novels as they are retelling the story in graphic novel form, and I can consume them a lot better than the books. Because to be honest, the last half of the Mortal Instruments, unlike popular opinion, is kind of my favourite, and I would just want to reread those, but I want the information that the other 3 books have, so I probably will just reread these in the future. But this was just okay. It wasn't anything groundbreaking or anything new. The designs and the artwork was very nice, but it wasn't anything new, I don't think. Next we have the Jeff Buckley Grace graphic novel. I can't remember who this is by, but I read this quite recently actually. This is basically a memoir, graphic memoir about Jeff Buckley, the singer, who unfortunately died in a very mysterious, enigmatic way. I'm gonna probably put this in This Was Just Okay again maybe, because I appreciated the story and I really liked learning a lot more about Jeff Buckley. I really do enjoy his music, and I wasn't a fan of him obviously when he was alive because he was already dead by the time I was born. But it was really interesting to see like his roots and how he got inspiration for what he did, and his talent basically. It was like a celebration of his life and his talent. The drawings and the illustrations were absolutely gorgeous. They were stunning. The colour palette was just A+. It was so good. But unfortunately, I do feel like the author kind of like concluded his story when it is known to be a mystery of how Jeff Buckley died, and she kind of just said that it was suicide when it's actually not confirmed. I felt it was a little bit disrespectful, a little bit just like wrong, it just felt wrong to me for her to conclude that. So I think for that reason, I'm going to put it in. This was just okay. Next, we've got Saga Volume 8, I think. And I think I really enjoyed this. I really can't remember my initial opinions, which is why I want to reread the Saga series because it's just kind of a blur at the moment. But I think this was going to go in really fucking good. I remember me really liking this volume and the fact that it was just this massive war in space still going on with all the politics involved and having a baby and being on opposite sides of a space war is really, really good. Next we have She Must Be Mad by Courtney Cox. Is it Courtney Cox? Is that the actress who plays Monica in Friends? Who even fucking knows? It's not by Courtney Cox, it's by Charlie Cox. I'm so sorry, we're not talking about Monica Geller from Friends. So this is She Must Be Mad by Charlie Cox. And this is a poetry collection about feminism and loving yourself and absolute garbage. I had a lot of expectation for this initially going into it and it just left a really bad taste in my mouth. There was one particular poem that I didn't like. In my Goodreads review I actually quoted it and it says, "All my friends are gay and I wouldn't have it any other way except on Friday night when I've got no one to get off with," which just seems like a really stupid thing to say. There were little like golden nuggets of poetry, but ultimately I was expecting more from this and therefore is going in absolute garbage. Next we've got Turtles All the Way Down by John Green, which is one of two of John Green's books I annually reread, and that is Looking for Alaska and Turtles All the Way Down. So this is gonna comfortably go up there with Looking for Alaska in best of the best. This is about Arza who struggles with OCD. I believe that is Own Voices representation as well because John Green suffers, I think. It's about Arza and her best friend Daisy who are basically going after like a rich kid's dad. They have this like old school friend and his dad's unfortunately gone missing and there's like a huge reward, and Arza and Daisy are both really broke, so they decide to try and make a connection with this boy and try and help him find where his dad is to ultimately get the reward. It's all about first loves and OCD and anxiety and being a good friend, and I really enjoyed it. That's why it's up there. I loved it so much. Next is Girls on the Verge, and I believe this is also about something to do with feminism as well, and I really can't remember it, so we're just gonna go thank you next because yikes. Lastly we have Don't Read the Comments by Eric Smith. I actually won an art copy of this and for that it's going in really fucking good. Not because I won an art copy but because it was a good book. This is basically about our two main characters, Diva and Aaron. Diva is a very popular streamer playing Reclaim the Sun with a bunch of, you know, people helping her behind the scenes with her streams. And then Aaron really would like to be a games developer, but he is currently working in a medical practice with his mum and his dad, when that's not really where he wants to be. These two team up at a convention to help Diva with her racist comments and to also help Aaron with someone stealing his work. And it is just really good. There's a lot of black joy in this, although there is a lot of like struggle and stuff like that. There's a lot of joy in it and I really enjoyed it. I gave it, I think, a pretty high rating. It was one of my favourite books of this year. And there we have it. That is my completed tier ranking video for 2020 done and dusted. It was originally by Hailey and Bookland. I forgot to say that until now. I will link her original idea down below in her video. I think that she did a really good job and it really inspired me to make this video. But yeah, I hope that you really enjoyed this video and you also share with me down below in the comments some of your best and some of your worst books of 2020. Give this video a like and my channel a subscribe if you want to see more content, and I will see you next time, probably in the new year, for my January TBR, which I'm very excited to share because I've got a very new way of reading this year and I'm very excited to get into it. But yeah, thank you so much for watching and I will see you then. Goodbye!